Continue on. I'm going to talk about quiz 3, 4, etc. So idea survey. So quiz, I'm going to talk about it. I didn't say we're going to take it. So quiz 3 is open now. Does anybody have any questions about that? Maybe. Yeah, I'll open it up when I get the chance. You want me to do it? I'll do it after class.
Do what?
So yeah, if you still want to redo quiz 3, that is open until tomorrow at midnight, I think. So take advantage of that if you'd like. So quiz 4, I think, is going to be on Friday. So that's going to cover strings and arrays. So think about that material. I will have 10 questions like usual on strings and arrays to test your knowledge. And then on Wednesday, we're going to have the DSU Tech exam. So this is a exam targeted at freshmen to gauge your progress in 105 and 150. Guys, please. So there's 20 questions on programming, 10 on Access, 10 on Excel, 10 on PowerPoint, and 10 on Word. This is for the DSU Tech exam. So this is something, there will be points associated with this.
If we fail, do we keep those knowledge?
Yeah, probably. I can't say for sure, but if you don't pass it, like the very minimum, I'm going to make you retake some class. So.
I swear to God, if I have to retake one class. I swear to God, if I have to retake this.
Not to study for this is what you're saying?
You have to.
We haven't even learned Access.
You haven't learned Access?
No.
I don't believe that. I'm pretty sure you have.
I didn't listen.
I have Steve Steele.
I might
haven't
get involved
started
in the section.
Access yet.
Okay, well, we're going to do this on Wednesdays, so it's something that's given to me that I have to give you regardless of whether you like it or not, or I like it or not. So I don't know how to do Access. I don't know how to do any of these things right here. Like, I don't know how to do these things.
I don't pay attention in class at all, and I still don't know how to do it.
So it just happens that we give this test in 150. I think it should be in 105 because whatever. But
Well, that's exactly what we went over. Well, and now we're writing each.
okay, so we're gonna do this on Wednesday. It's gonna be a great time. It's gonna be a great time. Another test, because I know you like tests so much. So, and then the final. Remember, that's going to be on Friday, December 11th, from 10:30 to 12:30. So there's going to be a D2L component and an in-class programming component. And you should know and understand everything we've talked about in this class, minus 2D arrays. I won't have any content on 2D arrays. But you should understand strings, arrays, functions, all of those things. I might ask you, for instance, to write one of the functions that we've covered in class. Let's say init. And I might ask you to write that function. So you should know init. So it takes an array, it takes the size of the array, and it takes the value that you want the array initialized to. I might ask you to write a couple other functions, things like initializing array to random numbers. I probably won't ask you to do random unique, but you should know how to work with arrays, how to pass into functions, and how to manipulate them. I haven't decided yet. Probably for the in-class programming component, you can use any other programs you've written previously. But for the quiz component, that will probably be completely closed book. So that's the final. So the big topic for today is assignment 7. So I got 13 submissions. I briefly looked through them, and there was maybe 2 of them that were okay. That I looked at, and they looked they looked like they could pass for a decent program.
I'd say this is a sign.
Oh, really? Oh, so you're not up there?
Oh, we have
You should
14.
see his program. It's actually everything.
Yeah. So
Mine shows
I don't know what to say really, except that
It was difficult.
If you
it was-
submit it, full credit.
I think you should be given more time than just like 2 weeks for this assignment. Like, it sounds really easy.
I
Just going
spent
into
my
it.
entire time. I think I'm pretty good at it.
yeah, yours was one of the few that I saw that looked pretty good. You were one of those too. So
I was sort of like 13 submissions.
I don't know. I have no words. Like I don't know what to say. At the very of the 13 I looked at, there were maybe 2 more in addition to this that made look like they had any progress made.
Wait, so like everybody turned into shuffle print?
Everybody turned in shuffle print pretty much. So like, I don't know what to do. I can't really give the full 30 point.
So wait, so there's like 4 people totally saying you got like points. How was Connors?
Do you want? I mean, since nobody submitted it, I can give you a little bit more time. Like,
Can you grade it so we know what our grade is?
you're getting 10 points right now. Probably.
Can you make it out of 10?
No, I can't. Well, what I'll do is I could theoretically lower the number of points, but I will still give. I'll still give you bonus points because I know you put in work. I know you put in work. So.
This is good actually.
It was really
It
good.
was really good.
I went broke so fast.
Can I make it so it's cheap?
So here's what we're gonna do.
Oh, that's
I don't even know what I'm gonna do.
Although
I'm going to.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm gonna lower down the points to 20 points. I'll still give up to 30 points bonus, or in total, including bonus points to anybody that's submitted it right now. And I'll give you until Wednesday at midnight to submit anything completed. So if you only do shuffle print, you're getting 10 out of 20. But if you make some progress, if you do something, I'll give you 20 points. That's not an open. That's not a blank check. Okay, that doesn't mean literally write one thing and then call it good. No, that means
Put an extra semi.
put some. If I see that you're trying, to make progress, not just submitting a random program, Blaine.
I don't submit random programs.
You literally submitted a random program last time, not for this one, but you submitted shuffle.
Wait, for assignment 6?
I don't know what you. For the assignment 7 pre one, you literally submitted just garbage.
Oh yeah, that was just like print test and scan it.
So if I see that you made some progress trying to accomplish this, I'll probably give you 20 points. I need to see something. I need to see some intelligence.
Everything but betting. And then I like add betting like 30.
If your program fully completes the requirements, I'll give you 30 points. So I'll, again, continue this on until Wednesday. So guys, actually work on it. Please work on it.
If I put a note in my program that says, if you give me a 20, I'll give you a 20.
You're dumb. You're so dumb.
Hey, it's
On that note, we also have a new assignment. So
Oh, yes.
please be seated.
Are you gonna give us this assignment now?
So this is our last assignment for the class. So this is assignment 8. So in this assignment, we're going to explore a couple different programming languages. What I want you to do is research 3 different programming languages, and then I want you to rewrite assignment 6 in these languages.
I didn't even finish assignment 6.
So if you did not understand assignment 6, do you remember that we did go over it in class? So refer to the videos. So there's 2 components that I want you to do. I want you to write a text file.
I'm trying to listen.
So a text file describing the difference between C and the languages you selected, and then a zip file containing your source code for these languages and your text file. So you're getting 20 points. So let's say you have your assignment 8 folder. So remember, you can make a directory by saying mkdir and then the directory name, so assign 8. So then do all your work in here. So let's say I have, I'll go through, what I'm going to do actually after this is go through a couple examples of some different programs. So let's say I wanted to, I'll just write a couple Hello World programs actually. So let's say I wanted to start off in PHP, and let's say PHP. So
You're so happy.
yeah, this is gonna be I promise this is gonna be lots of fun. So
Fun for you or fun for us?
fun for everybody, fun for the whole family. So some language suggestions that I have are C++, Java, JavaScript, Python, Ruby, PHP, Go, or Lua. You can use other ones, but HTML is not a programming language.
I'll
So let's say I wanted to write hello world in PHP. I would go, how do I write PHP? I don't even remember. It's one of these. Something like PHP. It's question mark PHP, that's what it is. There we go.
Why would you start it with question?
I'm not saying you have to use this language, but I'm saying if I was doing this.
Do you know what you're doing?
So
Right?
say, write it as if it was part of this language in C.
I don't even have PHP
So
installed.
can I just copy and paste it and I'll go for
What? I'm installing PHP. Give me a second here. No, I'm installing PHP so you can use PHP.
Oh,
so we're all gonna get now?
What?
So we're all gonna be able to use PHP now?
Yeah, if you not for assignments, but for this particular assignment.
So, out of the list that you have, does it have to be in those languages?
Yeah. No.
Oh, okay.
But if you do use a different language, you should note how I can use it.
wait, so after
Yep,
this
forgot the new line.
after this class, if we're like trying like code,
Minus
like
10
code
points.
stuff, we still write on like this.
What?
So after this class, if we're like writing code for like other classes for fun, can we still write it on this?
Probably not. I'll probably lock your account.
Yeah,
Guys, come on. Shh. If you have questions, like, ask me. Don't ask the person next to you. If you want to do it, no, honestly, like, you can. I'll probably. No, you're not doing this. No, you're not. No. I just realized how simple assignment 6 would be in Excel. So that was PHP. I could go through the examples of hello world in each of these languages if you want me to. Do you want me to?
No.
Yes.
Yes?
Why the hell? Why do we have to do this in like, why can't we just like turn it in via SQL?
Or Excel.
At the very minimum, what I'd want you to do is upload it to the server and then use a submission script. You don't have to write it on here necessarily. So
what you're saying is it doesn't have to compile. It just has to
yes, it does. Okay, so one of the things I said is that I want you to create a zip file. So you make a directory for your assignment, and then you create a zip file with this command. So you say zip -r, and then the zip file name and the directory you want zipped. So you would say to zip that assignment 8 directory, you would say zip -r assignment 8.zip assign 8. And that will take that entire folder and it will compress it into one single zip file, and then you can submit that by saying submit assignment 8.zip. So one thing that you should note is this -r. What that does is it starts at the top level directory that you specify, and it recursively goes down every single directory. So if I had, so you can see exactly which files were added to that zip file here. So if I go and I run this again, you can see that by specifying the -r, it will add everything underneath this folder that I specify. So you should put everything that you work on in assignment 8 in this folder, or in a folder. It doesn't necessarily have to be called assignment 8. I'll just delete that. So I want you to write, for the text file component, I want you to write something like readme. So just call it readme. So be like, I use C++, Java, and Ruby. And then what I want you to do is say Ruby, or let's say you start off with C++. You say C++ is like C, it has, and so on and so forth. And then write things comparing C++ to C. And then Java is like C. And then Ruby is not like C, or something like that. And then write just a couple sentences about the differences between the language that you selected and see the language that we've been kind of learning in this, well, not kind of, but actually learning in this class. So that's what I want to see in your README file. And then you should have 3 source code files in here. So you should have any of those languages that I selected or anything else like that. If you want anything on this system, just let me know. I don't know, is it 7, 8? I don't even know. I'll figure it out eventually. I thought I'd already installed all those things in here, but I guess I didn't. So I'll make sure that all the languages that I listed on D2L will have support on here. So you'll have to figure out the format of the source code, how to compile it or run it, and everything like that. So another one that I'll do that's really easy, I'll just do hello world in Python. So this one's pretty simple. You just do print, let's see, am I 3 or 4? Or 2 or 3. Hello world. And that would print hello world. So, what now? Nope, all of these languages, except for C++, all follow different rules. C++ is the closest thing to C that you'll get, but I would like you to do things slightly different in C++, based on how that language is.
Two of them I haven't tried. One of them I know a bit.
Cool. So, yep, just write 3 different programs in here. This is all meant to be exploration. What I want you to do is just kind of learn about these different languages and learn about some of the things that they offer in addition to or in contrast to C. So that's assignment 8. If you want practical value, I would probably select I would definitely select Python. Everyone likes Python. I would then select JavaScript, and then I'd probably select between C++ or Java if you want practical value. So I don't even know what that yeah. Yeah, I don't even know how to compile it. If you want to write it, I'll figure it out, but so one of the biggest differences that you'll encounter in this assignment, I didn't even finish the slide, whatever. What was I going to say here? We'll say that. So, the biggest difference that you'll encounter in the programming languages that you see are compiled versus interpreted languages. So, compiled languages have a compiler which generates the instructions the computer executes. So, when we write our source code, we would say something like main, let's just say we have a source code called main.c. We can use GCC to compile that source code into instructions that the computer runs. So, when we're so this is something that the computer generates. It doesn't really matter what it's actually saying. So when you say GCC and you're specifying source code and it generates a.out, this is something that the computer would generate, that it would actually execute. So that's what a compiled language does. It generates the actual binary codes that the computer uses to execute the instructions that you specify when you compile your program. However, interpreted languages make the decisions on what to do on runtime. So one of the things you might have seen me doing was running something like Python So the way we do PHP and Python, those are both interpreted languages. And what that means is that instead of compiling them into the assembly like you see up here, the object code that the computer actually runs, we would just run a already compiled command. So we'd run the command Python, and we'd specify our source code, and it will run that source code immediately. So what it will do is it will parse through that source code, and it will go line by line deciding what to do as it's going through the source code. Same for PHP. So it will decide as it's going through the source code what to do. You can see there's no a.out generator or anything like that. Again, it's making those decisions on runtime when you run the program. So that leads to a couple different things. So some of the things you might want to talk about are really heavily dependent on these two things, so compiled languages and interpreted languages. Some things you could talk about is traditionally compiled languages are faster than interpreted languages because by generating the code that will actually be run before running the program is typically faster. If you're making decisions and you're parsing the actual code on runtime, it's going to be slower. You could do things like some things that we talked about earlier are, so white space doesn't really matter that much in C. It's all stripped out by the compiler when you compile your program. So you can have a bunch of different white space characters that don't really matter in the end. Again, you're going to end up with code. The compiler will strip out everything that we as humans use to represent our code and break it down into a lot smaller, more fast, efficient components that the computer can actually run. But with an interpreter, it has to interpret that white space, interpret the way you wrote the program on runtime. So just a couple ideas of things you can talk about in assignment 8. So what time do we have here? We have 11:34. So I don't really want to go through any more than that. It's pretty easy. So easy to find Hello World program. So let's say I wanted to do Go. Let's say I could search Hello World in Go. So I could just click on here. And this is what a Go program would look like. And it shows you exactly how you would build the source code, and then you could also run it right there. So you can go around. Let's say I wanted to, well, I'll actually do one more, so just to show you how the system's set up. So the last one I'll do is hello in JavaScript. So a lot of the JavaScript you'll find online is dealing with JavaScript in the web browser, but there's actually a console server-side based JavaScript called Node.js. So in JavaScript, we print out like this. And then we can run it with the Node.js command. So we talked about a couple different languages, JavaScript, PHP, and Python. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about was reviewing strings just a little bit. So, okay, so remember, so strings are just like our strings are in C are represented with arrays. So remember, we can say int myArray to have an array of, let's say, 10 integers, but we can also say character myArray to have an array of characters, which is also referred to as a string. So what we can do is we can say equals and then give it a string, so we can just say ASDF and then print it out. Or we can not initialize this to anything and we can manually set the positions of the array to character values. So my array at position 0 equals A, and then I'll just I'll copy this down. And then remember, when we're working with arrays or with strings, we need to null terminate the last character. So we would say /0. Remember, this is going to be super important, definitely on the test kind of thing right here. So remember that the last position in our string needs to be a null terminator, a \0. So remember that when we call a function like puts, what it's going to do is it's going to loop through every single position of the array. It's going to start at position 0. It's going to say, if it's not a \0, then it's going to print a single character. So it's not a \0, it's going to print A, not a \0, again, going to print A, again, and then it finally reaches this \0, and it knows when the string stops. If we didn't have this, we wouldn't necessarily know that that's the end of the string. It would continue printing on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 until it reached a random 0 in memory, which isn't necessarily guaranteed to be anywhere. Remember that unless we initialize this to 0, so that's one of the ways we can initialize an array to 0, that that our array or any other variable isn't necessarily guaranteed to be 0. So remember that initializing to 0 is actually required. However, if we wanted to initialize this array to 0, we could actually do that. If we specified size, we specified a variable size. Remember that we cannot do this. We'd have to call a function like init to initialize that to whatever value we want to specify, in this case being 0. So that's strings. Remember a couple different things we can do with our strings. I'll go back in here again and null terminate it really quick. So I talked about some string functions before. So remember, we can include string.h to give us a couple comparison functions. So let's say we wanted to have another string called my string, and then I'll just set it immediately to ASDF. We can compare two strings by saying strCompare, so strcmp, specifying one string. So I'll specify the first one, specify the second one, and then I believe it's if they're equal to, if that function returns 0, then those two strings are equivalent. Or not. That's because they aren't equivalent at all. I set that one entirely to A's, so I need to set this one all to A's too. Yep, so now these strings are, you can test if strings are equivalent. So yeah, that's strings. Not much more I wanted to cover than that. Do you remember that if you want to build printfs using specific characters or specific strings, I could say printf. Remember that you can say %s for a string, and then I can say my array. And that will take every single character in my array until it hits the null terminator, the \0, and replace those values for this s here. If I wanted to print individual characters of my string, I could say %c, and then all I have to do is specify the position that I want to print here, and that will work. So final thing, we can manipulate individual component, or let's say we wanted to do, we could do something like this. So I can take a single character, let's say at position 0, and I can store it in a single variable called a. Let's say I wanted to manipulate that character. So I could do something like set a equal to b, or the variable a equal to the character b, and then I could store that back in my array. So I could say my array at position 0 equals a. So let's say I wanted to swap the first and the last character. What I could do is I could temporarily store the first character, which will end up being, we're going to change this variable, so we'll change it to var. So I could store this value a in var, and then what I could do is I could say my array at position 0 equals my array at position 3, and then I could say my array at position 3 equals var. So what this is doing is it's temporarily storing the value of the character at the first or 0 position. I'd use them two interchangeably, sorry. And then it's taking the value at my array at position 3 and storing it at my array at position 0. And then since we overwrote the value from my array at position 0, we need to have stored it before, or we needed to store it in another variable, so that's why we would say char var. That's why we need this intermediate variable, because when we're swapping something, we're overriding the value in the other variable. And then after we've done that copy, we would then say my array at position 3 equals var. So let's say we had something like z here. So what's going to happen here is it's going to take the a, and it's going to take the z, and it's going to swap the two. So actually, let me change this a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to print them before, and I'm going to print them after. And I don't want to do str, I want to do array. So we can see what that code did was swap those two characters. So you should definitely know how strings work, how arrays work. That's all I had to review about strings today. Any questions about strings? Any questions about arrays? Anything else I've talked about today? All right then, so do come prepared for the DSU Tech exam on Wednesday.
When is assignment due on next Tuesday?
Yeah, it'll be due next Tuesday. Assignment 8 will be due next Tuesday. I will update the D2L post to note that.